Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yathavinimayo Yatra Trisargom Risha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirastakohakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amrita Drava Sanyutam Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. We enter the 11th chapter of the 12th Skandha of Bhagavatam. So we saw the completion of the story of Markandeya. Now Shaunaka asks one question to the sage Suta Maharshi. He asks about the proper form of worship, especially how to understand the significance of the various limbs and weapons of the Lord. So when we see the form of the Supreme Lord as Narayana, he has many weapons or many paraphernalia such as a mace, a sword, a conch, and lotus flower and all that, and many attendants and many limbs. What does this signify, and how to worship correctly with the right understanding of what the various limbs, weapons, ornaments, attendants mean? Because the Lord is pure consciousness, so what do all these mean? What is the symbolism behind it? So that's what Shaunaka is asking. And Suta replies, he says, offering his obeisances to his guru, he says, let me tell you the various aspects of the Lord which has been contemplated by the great sages and Brahma himself, and which has been described through the Vedas and Tantras. So essentially the cosmic egg, or what is the source of the universe, is made of 9 fundamental principles. The primary being Maya or Prakriti, that is the primordial material nature. And then it has the Mahat Tattva, which is the cosmic intelligence. And then what's called Sutra, the active aspect of the cosmic intelligence. Ahankara, the cosmic ego. And the 5 subtle elements called Tanmatras, which is sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So these 9, that is the primordial nature, cosmic intelligence, active aspect of the cosmic intelligence, cosmic ego, and the 5 subtle elements are the 9 principal constituents, and there are 16 modifications, which are the 5 gross elements: space, air, fire, water, and soil, and the 10 senses, that is 5 senses of cognition and 5 senses of action and the mind. So with this, it is said that the cosmic form of the Lord is containing all these constituents, and it pervades all the 3 worlds, the earth, the heaven, and the intervening space, what's called Bhur Bhuva Swaha. So it is said that the cosmic form, and this description came in the second skandha itself, in the very beginning of Bhagavatam. Shuka Brahmam in fact gave a very beautiful detailed description of how to see the whole universe as the form of the Supreme Lord. That is, the entire universe is the body of the Supreme Being. And so here the same cosmic form, or Virat Rupa, Vishwarupa, is described, where it is said that the earth are his feet, the heaven is his head, and the air intervening the two is like his navel, the sun is his eyes, the nostrils are the air, and his ears are the quarters, and his mind is the moon, because moon has a direct connection with mind and with thought activity, and his smile is Maya, the deluding energy, and so on. So the entire universe, all the 5 elements, all the living entities, all the regions, all aspects of nature, everything is all to be seen as the form of the Supreme Being. That is, it is nothing but the one indivisible body of the Supreme Being. So the other way to understand it is, the whole universe is essentially one interconnected body. Just as a human body is interconnected, though we have many parts in the body, and they all seem to have distinct identities and distinct functionalities, and yet they are all interconnected as one body. Similarly, the whole universe also is made of distinct entities, humans and animals and plants and inanimate objects and all the rest. Each have their distinct functionalities, and yet they are all connected as one interconnected body. And that interconnected body is the Virat Rupa, or the universal form of the Lord. So that is one understanding. And then he goes on to say that therefore, if you look at the form of the Lord, so that is the cosmic form. And then there is the personal form, which is the form with the Kaustubha gem and all the rest, with the traditional description which is found in temples also, of wearing yellow silk and having 4 arms and having a conch shell and lotus and mace and the Sudarshana Chakra, the wheel, and a crown, and all that. So that form also has symbolism. So that's what now Suta describes. He says, the pure consciousness, which is the animating principle of every living entity, is the Kaustubha gem. There is a shining gem on the chest of Narayana, and that gem represents pure consciousness. And the splendor of that gem is called as Srivatsa, the mark on his breast or his right chest, that is. And then the Maya made of 3 gunas is his garland. So he wears a garland of forest flowers, Vanamala. And this Vanamala is nothing but the Maya itself. It represents the Maya. His golden silk dress represents the Vedas. The symbol Om with the 3 syllables A, U, Im, or 3 parts Om, that is represented by the sacred thread which has 3 strands. And then the 2 earrings represent Sankhya and Yoga. So the 2 ways of realizing the Supreme are Sankhya and Yoga, and they are the 2 earrings. And the crown, which is the highest part, is the fearlessness or the essence of the Supreme Being as Brahman. And the primordial matter, Prakriti, is his couch or is his seat, and it is represented by Sesha, the serpent on which he rests. The serpent is the seat of Narayana, and that serpent Sesha represents the primordial matter. And the Sattva Guna, which has 6 properties, they are Dharma, Jnana, Aishwarya, Yasha, Sri, Vairagya. That is, Dharma is righteousness, Jnana is wisdom, Aishwarya is opulence, Yasha is glory or fame, Sri is affluence, and Vairagya is dispassion. These 6 qualities together are considered to be the lotus. And then the vital air that is there in every human being as prana, that is said to be represented by his mace Kaumodaki. So there are 5 airs, it's always described: prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana. So these 5 airs have different function. Prana is the inhaling breath, and then apana is the outgoing breath, and then there is the breath that digests the food. There is the breath that, or the air that makes excretion happens, and there is the air that makes goes when sleeping. So many different functionalities are done by 5 different airs. The principle of them is prana, and that prana is represented by the mace called Kaumodaki. The principle of water, so essentially we can say the principle of air is represented by the mace Kaumodaki. The principle of water is represented by the conch, which is called Panchajanya. The principle of fire is represented by Sudarshana. The principle of space is represented by sword. And in this way, he says various aspects of the universe are all embodied by the person of the Supreme Lord, the form of the Supreme Lord. So the 10 senses, for example, are considered as shafts. The mind is said to be his chariot. And the various mudras he has. Mudras are the positions of hands are meant to confer boons such as fearlessness and so on. So, in this way, the personal form, so one is the universal form we saw, the universal form or cosmic form, which is Vishwarupa, is one form in which the Lord is visualized, and that is the symbolism that the whole universe is the body of the Lord, one interconnected body as the universe. Then there is the personal form, which we have seen now, which where he carries a mace, a conch shell, a Sudarshana chakra, lotus, resting on Sesha, the serpent, with shafts and the chariot and all the rest. All of that, everything. So we saw how the sacred thread represents Om, the golden silk represents the Vedas, the Kaustubha gem represents consciousness, and the various weapons represent various elements. So, in this way, the personal form of Narayana is also highly symbolic of the whole manifest universe. So, in this way, Suta Maharshi has described both, and he says, therefore, with the various distinguishing attributes, so there are 6 attributes that are called as Bhaga, and that is why he's called Bhagavan, because Bhagavan is one who has the 6 qualities. They are called Aishwarya, Dharma, Yasha, Shriya, Jnana, Vairagya. That is again affluence, righteousness, fame, opulence, wisdom, and dispassion. So, all of this is represented by the lotus, as we already saw. And having this lotus, and hence being called Bhagavan, with his attendants and with his umbrella that represents Vaikuntha, or the realm of fearlessness and liberation, and his vehicle is Garuda, which represents the Vedas again, the 3 Vedas, Rig, Yajur, and Sama, and his very personality represents sacrifice or yajna, and his inseparable energy is called Shri or Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. And Vishwaksena, his chief attendant, represents the various tantras, that is, various aspects of the scriptures. The 8 celebrated attributes or powers of the Lord are represented by the 8 attendants. So the 8 attributes are Anima, Mahima, and so on. That is the 8 siddhis, the various powers, such as becoming very infinitesimal, expanding into very huge size. All these powers are represented by the 8 attendants, and he is primarily having 4 forms: Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, which again, all of this also came in the very beginning of Bhagavatam itself. Vasudeva is the primary essence of Narayana, the Supreme Being. Sankarshana is the expansion as grace, which is Balaram in the avatar of Krishna. Vasudeva is Krishna, Sankarshana is Balaram. And then Pradyumna and Aniruddha are the son and grandson of Krishna, but they represent mind and ego. So that is why everything is none other than the Supreme Being, including the false ego, which is represented by Aniruddha. And so it is said that the Lord, with all these various expansions and all the various paraphernalia, each of it symbolizing various aspects of the universe and his qualities, he manifests as the 4 states as well. So the 4 states are waking, dream, deep sleep, and the 4th being the self-realization state, or Turiya. That is Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, Turiya are the 4. Turiya is called the 4th, though in reality it's the one that is the substrate of the first 3. So these 4 again have different forms of the Lord called Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna, and Turiya again. So therefore, Suta concludes by saying that with all the various limbs, the various attendants, the various weapons, ornaments, each of them symbolizing, as we saw, different aspects such as the Vedas, the sound Om, the elements such as air, water, fire, and space, and the various qualities such as righteousness, wisdom, compassion, or dispassion, and so on, and the various aspects of powers and attributes. So, all of which is signified by the personality of the Supreme Being with his limbs, weapons, and ornaments. With all of this appearing as the four forms, as we saw Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, he says the Lord covers all the four states: waking, dream, deep sleep, and the state of realization. Therefore, he says he is the source of all the Vedas, self effulgent, perfect in his glory. He creates, preserves, and destroys this universe, though remaining unaffected by it as pure consciousness. And he is realized by his devotees as their own true self. Therefore, he concludes with a prayer by saying, O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O fire for the wicked ones who are burned by Krishna when he descends as the avatar to remove the wicked, the one whose power is undiminished, whose glory is ever sung by the sages, I offer my obeisance to you. He says, Sri Krishna, Krishna Sakha, Govinda, Shravana Mangala, Pahi. So, in this way, he glorifies Krishna with a prayer. And then, after this prayer is shared, and this way, Suta describes the form of the Lord, both the universal form and the personal form, as we have seen, with its symbolism. Shaunaka asks one more question, and this time it's regarding the sun. He says, because sun is so central to Vedas and it is glorified in Gayatri Mantra and so on. So he's asking about the sun. It is said that the sun, when it goes through month after month, the 12 months, it takes different forms and there are different beings who glorify the sun. Please tell me about it. So Suta replies and says, yes, the sun came into being as the essence of the primordial material energy. So when the primordial material energy, as we saw, comes forth with cosmic intelligence and it brings forth the various elements, the five elements and so on, that brings forth the visible sun, because the sun is so essential for the life itself, and that is how the whole world functions, only through the energy of the sun. And therefore the visible sun is a manifestation of this prakriti, this primordial material energy, which is one without a second, and it is non-different from the Supreme Lord because it is the energy of the Lord. As such, everything in the universe, every atom is non-different because everything is an expansion of the same energy. But the sun is special because sun is the source of energy for the whole earth and in fact the entire solar system. And therefore the sun is also specially revered, and it is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord. And he says the Supreme Lord in fact has 9 key attributes, out of which the attribute of time is managed by sun. So the 9 are time, place, activity, doer, instrument, duty, scripture, materials, and fruit. Kalo, Desha, Kriya, Karta, Karanam, Karyam, Agamaha, Dravyam, Phalamiti Brahman, Navadho Ukta, Ajaya, Harihi. So the great Lord Hari, the Supreme Lord, manifests as 9 qualities. First is time, Kala, then Desha is place, Kriya is activity, Karta is the doer of the activity, Karanam is the instrument through which activity happens, Karyam is the actual duty that's done, Agama is scripture, Dravya is the material used for all activity, and Phalam is the fruit. So these 9 are, again we can see it covers the entire nature of all activities. And he says here that all these 9 are nothing other than the Supreme Lord. So it's another way of saying that every single action from the atomic level to the galactic level, which seems to have a doer, which seems to have a place, time, instrument, materials it uses, and the result, which is the fruit of the action, all of this is only the various aspects of the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of this, time is the primary, and that time is managed by the sun going through 12 months. And the 12 months he gives here are Chaitra, Vaishakha, Jeshta, Ashadha, Shravana, Bhadrapada, Magha, Phalguna, Margasirsha, Pausha, Ashvina, Kartika. So these are the 12 months in the Vedic calendar. And he says in each of the 12 months there are 7 groups of people who are responsible for each month. So there is a sage who is marked for each month. There is an Apsara who is a beautiful woman who is supposed to celebrate that for each month. There is the Gandharva or a singer. There is a snake. There is a Rakshasa, the demon. There is a Yaksha, and there is a Devata. So these 7, it is said, each from these 7 groups there is one representative from each group. So there are 7 personalities who are associated with each month, and this 7 is given for each of the 12 months. So the various rishis for each month, such as Pulatsya, Narada, Vasishtha, and so on, the various devatas such as Aryama, Mitra, Indra, and so on, and similarly the various forms of snakes, the various forms of musicians, dancers, they are all listed. So for instance, the last month of Kartik that's given, which is a very special month, most auspicious month, it has Vishnu himself as the Devata, Rambha as the Apsara, then Makapeta, Ashvatara, Satyajit, Vishwamitra, Suryavarcha. Vishwamitra is the sage, and so on. So in this way, all the 12 months, the 7 personalities for each of the 12 months are given. The 7 being the sage, the dancer, the singer, the Devata, that is the demigod, the Rakshasa, and the Yaksha. So, and then he concludes by saying, understand that the glory of the sun, which goes through these 12 months and thereby maintains the cycle of time through month and year and so on, this sun is none other than the Supreme Lord Vishnu. He says, Eta Bhagavato Vishnu Radityasya Vibhutaya. The glory of the sun is none other than Vishnu, and the one therefore who looks upon the sun as the glory of the Supreme Being, he is liberated. So that's the essence of Gayatri Mantra. It is not worshipping the sun per se, but it is looking at the sun as the manifest or the most visible expression of the divine energy. Energy is all there is in the universe, and the entire universe is manifested through divine energy. Of all the various manifest forms of energy, the most powerful manifest energy is the sun, which alone powers the whole of solar system. Therefore, by looking upon the sun as the divine energy of the Supreme Being, and thereby recognizing that that energy which is shining as the sun is what's animating the whole universe, including our own bodies, and by worshipping the energy of the sun, we are worshipping the energy of the universe. And that, with that understanding, Gayatri Mantra also invokes the sun. So here Suta concludes this chapter by saying, therefore, through the 12 months of the year, the sun coursing around the world, relatively speaking, is nothing other than the glory of Vishnu, and the various sages who are associated with the sun, they represent the Vedas, Sama, Rig, Yajur Vedas. The Gandharvas are meant to sing the praises, the Apsaras to dance, and so on. So in this way, the sun is also symbolically seen to be organized or held together by the various personalities. But in essence, all this represents is that the sun with its energy represents the glory of the Supreme Being, the all-pervading Vishnu. And therefore, recognizing this and looking upon the sun as none other than the Almighty Lord Sri Hari, who is without any beginning or without any end, one can thereby recognize the essence of the whole universe as the Lord alone. And with this chapter ends, the chapter that describes both the personal form of the Lord and the cosmic form of the Lord, as well as the sun because of its special place as the manifest form of the divine energy. With this chapter ends. Now the last two chapters will summarize Bhagavatam and conclude it in the most auspicious way, which are the last two chapters remaining now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.